This is TruthQuest, uncovering the powerful technologies, visionary strategies, and compelling stories that fuel our quest for clarity and authenticity in a rapidly changing world. From groundbreaking innovations to real-life success stories, we take a deep dive into how individuals and businesses are harnessing truth tech to change their lives and create meaningful change. We believe that everyone deserves to know the truth. This is TruthQuest, and now your host, Dr. Bryan.
Welcome, I'm Dr. Bryan.
And I'm Mary Claire.
And we are your hosts for TruthQuest, where we dive into the new technologies and stories about people's quest for truth and the impact it has on their lives. Today's program, we're going to address a few ways new technology can influence important social issues, such as addiction recovery, identification, and investigations in law enforcement. We're really fortunate today to have as our guest Dan Jurkiewicz, who is a father, husband, detective, and founder of a company which supplies the market with biometric solutions, training hardware services, and software solutions to the identity and employment screening industry. Daniel uses his unique experiences in his role as a detective and founder of his business to bridge the gap between corporate and real world. From the cases he handles as a detective in law enforcement to the deals in the biometrics industry to the daily life of being a father and a husband. His perspective is going to be unique to say the least, and we're really excited to speak about his experience involving truth verification and the use cases that might be applied to both real life and the corporate world.
Well, awesome. Bryan, thanks for the intro. Dan, great to have you on. Thanks for taking the time to join us.
Happy to be here. Thank you very much. It's a beautiful intro. Thank you. When somebody else says it, it sounds so good.
It sounds so good.
But I appreciate it. I'll try to stay as humble as possible.
Bryan's the ultimate hype man over here. Well, Dan, let's kick it off. Let's hear a little bit about your background, both as a detective, as an entrepreneur. Very unique combination. So excited to hear more about that.
Yeah, for sure. I'll give you the cliff notes and the origin story a little bit. So in 2015, I became an NYPD cop. I've wanted to be in law enforcement since I was, ever since I could remember, since I was 5 years old. I started that, basically my dream career, 2015. I actually started as a cop on a foot post in Brooklyn, in East New York, Brooklyn. And I was from the suburbs. So if you could imagine, it's kind of like taking a duckling and walking it out on the city streets. I learned a lot very quickly. That parlayed into, finally going onto a patrol car. From a patrol car, I went to a special operations team called Conditions. And it sounds very good, but basically what it was is our team was used in that precinct to do, sometimes plainclothes things, sometimes addressing the conditions of the precinct, the community, so on and so forth. In late 2018, I actually made a big move to go from the NYPD to a suburb close to me.
Okay.
A little bit better of a working schedule, a little bit of a long-term play, but with that came a huge pay cut. And at this time, I was not an entrepreneur. A couple of side gigs here. I started in the marketing world. And when I made that switch is when I really decided to, on my off time, ramp that up.
Got it.
So I started in marketing. I found a very unique niche and industry in the fingerprinting world, specifically in the employment screening world. And we did a lot of marketing for those customers. We found one big customer. We kind of partnered with them. They took us under our wing and taught us a lot about the industry. Everything about the industry was basically what we know from that one partner, that one big partner. They ended up getting acquired. Their company, right now is doing very, very big and beautiful things, honestly, things we never thought that would be possible. And we used a lot of that knowledge to start an education business at first for fingerprinting training. So there's a lot of small to medium business owners that don't know about the space, don't know that it's a good add-on service.
Yeah.
And from there started adding on, other possibilities of, wholesale hardware, wholesale retail, wholesale software, just other things and how it can partner with other bigger industries, specifically for the employment screening side.
Yeah.
And there's a big gap right now in the employment screening side when it comes to the different states acting together. Each state in the fingerprinting world acts as almost like its own country. Each state has its own regulations. Some states don't connect to other states. And in the employment screening and really just the background check world, it's very segmented across every single state. So our mission with what we're doing now is to try and make that as easy as possible to navigate through every single state, so that big companies who do business across states, have employees across states, especially with a lot of people working remote now and other companies starting up, can do employment screening, can do background checks without having to navigate the red tape of going state to state. So that's our big, hairy, audacious goal, basically, is to do that. And it's been going well. But as you could tell, there's 50 states. So attacking them each by each, it takes a long time, but it's good. It's fun. And there was a lot of learning in the process of that.
You know what? I find something, when I first met you guys, you and Nick, I found it fascinating. You were these sales and marketing experts that happened to be in the fingerprinting world and almost taking, and I don't know much about the identity world or in terms of fingerprinting and such, but bringing new age to an old way of doing things, or from a scalability perspective, a way to go to market. Anyway, it's just fascinating, your guys' expertise, in particular, the expertise you're able to bring to that market, and excited to see where you guys continue to take it.
Yeah, it was a huge gap when we started, mainly because, and the term internet marketing has, kind of like this taboo tied to it, because you see all the videos on YouTube and you see all the, a lot of marketing companies are startup garage founders, things like that. But as we grew, we found that a lot of the corporate marketing and big business marketing could take a lot of the things that we were doing and integrate it into their solutions to, help them, give them a 20, a 30, a 40% jump in the things that they weren't doing. So that's where we took most of the industry, and that's where we're taking it now. But on the flip side, we learned a lot about, what is an effective marketing campaign for a big business? What can you say? What are the regulations? What are within the FTC guidelines? So you fall in that world where you kind of have to make sure everything is within regulations, and it's not just, the wild, wild west of internet marketing, and tie that together and use both of those to create good campaigns and then just good solutions for people.
Well, great. Exciting story.
Absolutely. Dan, let's talk a little bit about some other areas that you might expand to. We're going to come back to this fingerprinting and identity area, but some other areas that you have also spent some time thinking about, and that, and frankly, are some really big issues that we'd love to get your opinion on. One of those is addiction recovery, and I'm sure that as a cop, you've seen a lot of those kinds of issues and the needs in those areas. Just to give you some background for our listeners, the global addiction treatment industry reached $12.8 billion in 2022. It's growing at a rate of 7 to 8% compounded annually as a growth rate. Yet despite this size and importance, as well as its rapid growth, the industry faces some pretty big challenges, such as funding constraints, varying quality of care, access disparities. But we see a lot of really interesting opportunities driven by new technology advancements, including teletherapy, AI accountability, increasing insurance coverage, growing recognition of the importance of this mental health in general. We often look at problems like homelessness, for example, and then you start to recognize that a lot of that is a mental health care issue as much as anything. Just some other statistics quickly. The National Institute on Drug Abuse reports that 40 to 60% of those receiving care achieve short-term abstinence, but only 20 to 30% are able to achieve long-term abstinence. So now the question is, how do we improve that? And new technologies are showing promise to disrupt the industry, create an environment of safety, accountability, transparency, and consistency. Dan, I'd love your perspective on this. Again, coming both from identity, entrepreneurship, and being a police officer, kind of what have you seen and what are the promises here in general, do you think?
It's funny. When I think about this subject, I think about it in like 3 different personalities. I think about it as, as a father, as a husband. I think about it as, a law enforcement officer, as a detective, and I think about it as like a business person. So it's like I'm looking at 3 clouds at the same time and like trying to tie them together. What I've seen in the law enforcement side since like 2018, 19, especially when I came over to the suburbs, addiction, especially with the opioid crisis, it is so huge in the suburbs. It's big in the city too, and you do see a lot of it, but you see a lot of everything in the city. And there's always something that stands out in the suburbs. And it really is this addiction crisis. I would say so, at least, especially when I was a cop before I was a detective, and now as a detective, when you're going to overdose cases and you're trying to, follow those breadcrumbs of where did it come from, where is it getting shipped from, and then dealing with the families of, members who are trying to help their loved ones dealing with addiction. I've seen the same problem happen over and over again when it comes to family members dealing with loved ones with addiction, and that is that they don't know. Because they are not them, and they just don't know, and they feel helpless. And there's a few things that they could do, don't get me wrong, but you have to drag that other person to do it. Things like drug testing or urine analysis, or trying to send them to a rehab, or using the local healthcare laws to see if you can forcefully send them to a rehabilitation center. Unfortunately, most people, they end up just getting arrested. And that is just a spinning wheel of getting arrested, getting arraigned, and then released on their own recognizance, and then back on the streets and do it again. Because, the local governments and the government, although they do try to do the right thing, and they are looking out for the people, and it is truly, it is based on rehabilitation. Like, they don't just throw people in jail to just sit there and rot. Like, they are supposed to rehabilitate, but there's a lot of things that are just not available to the people who are dealing with this to be able to give them the best leg up to actually, fight it and beat it.
Interesting. You said a couple things that I'd really like to dive on a little bit. You said they don't know. It feels like there's a couple of places where knowing would be really important, right? One would be knowing that it's going on. Okay,
Right.
great. And if you could figure out how to get to that question, then the next question is, how bad is it? I mean, how, because first of all, I think that any addict is going to tend to try to lie about this situation, right? They're not going to naturally come clean. But even if they're then caught in that lie, they tend to minimize the actual severity of the situation. And so some of these new technologies, are you seeing opportunities and ways that this might be, you talked about urinalysis, you talked about, some of these other technologies. What are you seeing?
I've had many conversations with a lot of parents who, once a child, and when I say child, I mean, as low as like 12, 13, 14, a teenager, if they start experimenting with drugs or, God forbid they do overdose or something like that, they've had all the tools before where they can check their phone, they can take their phone away, they've had the apps on their phone where they could check and see who they're talking to, but what they don't know is like what they're doing. And that's what really worries them. I've had so many conversations with parents where they say, one of two things. Either it's complete despair and just denial, saying this is a one-off thing, this should never happen to my son, to my daughter. And then on the flip side of the coin, it's the parents that they know something's happening, but they just don't know what's going on, and they're in a period of where they just feel helpless. And I try to give not the same speech every time. I try to take every occurrence, as specific as it is when you go to overdose cases and things like that. But it's almost like everybody is being reactive to the problem and nobody's being proactive to the problem. And we see a lot of it in the same side in law enforcement. A lot of law enforcement, nowadays, a lot of it is reactive. A lot of it is, taking reports and waiting for the crime to happen as opposed to like the proactive policing. So I see that problem happen in multiple areas, and it's very troubling because you look at a parent or you look at a loved one or you look at somebody who's, speaking on behalf of the person who did overdose or has this addiction problem, and it's just a feeling of complete helplessness. And in that moment of helplessness, they will be willing to do anything. The problem is there's just not, from what I see, a very, very good solution that is new, that's cutting edge, that could help them. And maybe it's not, the silver bullet that could help them, because there's got to be a lot of steps in the journey for them to recover or to, beat their addiction and things like that. And tools like rehab recovery, like drug testing, like things like that. Working with a parole officer, working with the court system, working, when somebody does get arrested, instead of going and doing, 65 days in jail, maybe they do get sent to a program. But then what tools do those programs have? Do they just have a check-in and a check-out, and while you're out, it's just, hey, you better be good, I see that all the time too. But it's it's not something where a silver bullet can solve it, I see, but there's a huge gap. There's just a huge gap of not knowing what people are doing.
It would be really interesting. And Mary Claire, you might comment on this. I love what you said there, Daniel, about being proactive versus reactive.
Yeah.
One of the things that really intrigues me are these new technologies, like I Can Know's technology, but other technologies as well that use AI to find out what's going on up front, right? Like, what if you could run a test, just regularly run a test on your teenager or your spouse or someone else to just say, are you taking drugs? Are you addicted to drugs? Are you on anything? And get some feedback with a high level of confidence as to whether that was going on or not. Mary Claire, you're a mom. I mean, you're going to have young kids coming up. What would that look like, do you think?
Yeah, I think where my head goes is it's got to, just like Dan, you said, there's no silver bullet. There has to be a intimate connection between the technology used and the trust being built, right? How do you create a foundation of trust? And a trust has been broken. How do you recreate that? So seeing these technologies as an opportunity to rebuild that bridge rather than as a punitive sort of action.
Yeah, right.
I think it's a mindset in part. Again, there's no silver bullet. So how do we leverage the technologies that are available with tools like counseling? When you put them together, I think 1 + 1 is going to be 3 rather than 2 or 1.5 or whatever it may be. So I, as a parent, granted my children are very young at this point, but that's how I think that's how I would approach it.
Interesting. And that leads me to the whole concept about accountability. If you were able to say, if you knew that there was a challenge and you wanted to make sure that people were being accountable to commitments that they had made, regarding this, that new technologies might be ways that we could encourage that accountability. I don't know if that sounds like something that might work in an environment with this kind of thing you're talking about, Dan.
Yeah, with the thing that I see with parents, especially when their teenagers are just about that coming of age stage, 12, 13, 14, 15, once they get to 17, 18, 19, it is tougher. And I do see a lot of parents being more reactive than proactive, mainly because, they're their own person. They're starting to grow up as an adult, although they're still very much, I think back to when I was 18, I didn't know anything. But I thought I knew everything. So, but that age of 12, 13, 14, and even, younger than that, depending on the child, if there's a proactive approach that is not like a jail sentence of coming home and a parent sitting there with, okay, you're going to take your drug test because I think you're doing drugs. Mom, Dad, you're crazy. No way. I'm not doing that. And I'll tell you what, if they do agree to do it, they're going to negotiate on whether or not they do it privately, whether or not they do it in 2 days. And I'm gonna tell you right now, from the drug, I'm not an expert in the drug testing world, but I went to high school, and this is when specifically the OxyContin issue was huge. I knew plenty of people that would borrow urine from a friend or this or that, and and they would be drinking 2-3 gallons of water during the day. Now, again, I'm not an expert on drug testing. I don't know if that actually masks it. Depends on what panel you're getting. Are you doing urine? Are you doing hair analysis? And also, that stuff's really expensive.
It is. Yeah, time-consuming.
You can get a $20 test from Walgreens, but good luck seeing if those results are actually accurate. And then good luck doing that over and over and over again. And then good luck having your child, your teenager, whoever it is, actually agree to do it, because it's such a, I look at it from a sales perspective. You're not going to start with a huge sales pitch. If I'm looking to, go raise funding, or if I'm looking to go and, speak to a big corporation or a big business to do some type of deal, it's not going to be on the first 15-minute discovery phone call where I say yeah, listen, we should do a deal and it's going to be X amount over 12 months. And what do you say? I'll send over the documents now. We'll get the lawyers involved. It doesn't happen that way, right? I see the same thing with the parents with children, specifically just on this topic with the parents with children, that you're not just going to have your kids show up and then just, hold up a vial and say, all right, time to take urine. I think it really starts with something that you could do, that's different from that maybe isn't a urine analysis, or maybe isn't something like that. Maybe it's hey, listen, John, Jane, I've been a little bit worried about, you hanging out with such and such. Such and such's parents are a little questionable. You've been out with them in the movie theaters or this and that, and I'm worried. I trust you, but I'm worried. I found this app, and this app can do something pretty cool. This is a lie detection app. It uses AI. All you kids with your AI and all this stuff and your essay writing and you're submitting essays using AI and things like that. Like, why don't we just try it? I'll do one myself. I'll show you how it's done. You give me one, I give you one. Something like that. I see a bunch of scenarios where it's a better conversation to have. It's almost interesting. I truly honestly think that once a solution like this goes, or catches fire, catches wind, and people know that this exists and that you can do it, and they start doing it, I think the kids would be like, yeah, I'll take a lie detection test, no problem. Sure.
Yeah,
I'll beat it. And then they get it. And they get I'll beat it, no problem. Duh. Yeah, of course. And it's just, intuitively, I think of it as just it being an easier solution to bring to your loved one or your child or your teenager, as opposed to something that's a little bit more invasive, like urine analysis. I really do.
Let's take it one step further. If you, let's say that you know that your child is on drugs, or your spouse, or a good friend, or something else, and traditionally, then you'd be like, "Hey, you need some help. Why don't you get some rehab help?" Do you see the technologies as being beneficial in the sense of kind of establishing baseline truth, or maybe even disrupting that counseling rehab market in terms of maybe you could do some of this at home? Maybe you could create an environment where accountability was high enough that, this was something that you could do with the help of loved ones in an environment where the truth was known. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
I see it as a potential solution that, rehab programs, inpatient, outpatient, things like that, if they were to add this on and give a solution to people who are already looking into those centers, because a parent, I'm not going to say that they're going to lack the creativity to think about what to do, but from a marketing perspective, they're going to search for these, recovery centers, whether it's inpatient, outpatient, whatever it is, and they're going to see $30,000 a year. They're going to see it's an upfront payment of this, and then it's a monthly payment of this, and you stay on board for this, and you have a contract.
Right.
I'm going to see things like that. And I'm telling you right now, I've never marketed for any type of recovery center, but intuitively, I think they have to be losing a lot of customers from the price point perspective for people who just cannot afford that, and just the logistical perspective, like, oh, well, they have finals, so they have a Regents coming up. I can't really send them away, but on the weekends, they're going to miss their friends. They're going to think that something happened to them. What's going on? As opposed to, listen, remote in-home treatment, we'll set you up. We're going to give you X amount of tests per week. It's going to ask these questions. If you'd like a custom test because something happened that weekend while they were out with their friends, we can ask that. We can order that. And even if they don't sign them up as a customer, it could still plant that seed into somebody's mind to say, like, oh, well, maybe I do an at-home lie detection journey with my teenager, with my loved one, or whoever it is. And we set up a process where, hey, listen, for 90 days, we're just going to establish some trust. We're going to, make sure that you're held accountable, because if you are going out on a weekend, you don't know what's going to happen, but you're going to be presented with a problem. You're going to be presented with, another friend that's out there that's doing drugs, or, another person, and you're going to have to make a decision, because on Tuesday at 4 p.m. when you get home from school or from work or however old this person is, you're going to sit at the table and you're going to end up doing that lie detection test. And if you mess up now, on Tuesday there's going to be repercussions, and you're not beating it. There's just no way. As opposed to the old way of doing it, where it's like, oh, well, if it's Saturday, by Tuesday, if I drink 3 gallons of water every day and I flush it out, and, maybe I'll contact so-and-so and maybe they'll help me out with it, or maybe I'll come pre-prepared, just things like that. There's so many problems with, not saying urine analysis is bad or doing drug testing is bad. I'm just saying, from my experience, the thought process of when presented with an opportunity to do some type of drug would be different if they knew they had a lie detection test coming up on Tuesday, as opposed to a urine analysis. Because urine analysis, even if logistically it can't be beaten, if it is your urine, right? Or if it is that person's urine. In the mind of the person who's actually doing it or knows that on Tuesday they have their drug test coming up, I see it as they think that if they do it on a Saturday and a few days pass, like I can beat it, and then they end up doing the drugs anyway, right?
Yeah.
And maybe they don't beat the test. Oh, okay, and then you're caught. You tested positive for whatever. It doesn't solve the problem because they still did the drug on Saturday, as opposed to, I don't want to say the fear, but just the knowing, the locked-in nature of a lie detector. Yes, the accountability is just the thought process, the mental battle in there is like, oh man, I have my lie detection test on Tuesday. There's no way if I do this right now that I'm going to pass that. And maybe it's not hard evidence of, drugs in my pocket or in my drawer or whatever it is. But I know once I fail this on Tuesday, like that's it, I'm done. And then next step is the drug test and the recovery program. And I don't want that, so you know what? I'm going to skip this one.
The one last comment I've got. We keep talking on the idea of accuracy and accountability. I want to circle back to that, but in terms of, I lost my train of thought, guys.
We'll cut all of this. That's okay.
Perfect. All right. I totally forgot my question. It was going to be a segue, but I actually had a comment. That's all right. Do we want to wrap this section up and then I can move on to AI? I apologize. I just whipped on it.
No, that's okay. We'll cut all of this. All right. Here, I can just transition it back to you, Mary Claire. So, all right.
Okay.
So Dan, this is very interesting, the way that you're thinking about maybe new ways to disrupt this area and use this to help families stay on track with this. I know there's some other areas. Mary Claire, maybe there's some things that you were thinking about in terms of other technologies.
Yeah, so I think there's been a theme in our discussion around accuracy and accountability, and one leads to the other. The more accurate something is, the more effective it is, the more opportunity there is to hold an individual accountable. In this case, we've been talking about addiction. I want to circle back, Dan, to, again, the kind of truth verification, identity world that we've been discussing. AI is disrupting all sorts of industries. And I want to get your perspective on kind of how do we think AI is going to disrupt identity verification? So there's technologies, there's facial recognition, there's iris scanning, there's all sorts of biometrics out there in the market. What do you think, again, from your experience, primarily as an entrepreneur, but also being a cop, what's going to be the impact on the fingerprinting and traditional identity verification markets with more AI technology coming to market?
I'm extremely confident that the big problem the biometric industry is going to face as far as identity verification, and just to break that term down for anybody listening who might not understand, like, what's the use case? Like, identity verification, it is who they are. Like, just take a selfie. Like, those can, you can get away with those. Trust me. I've seen it happen. But, identity verification is, in the fingerprinting world, it's, how do we know the person who is submitting their fingerprints right now is that actual person? One of the biggest crimes that nobody knows about right now, it's a silent epidemic of crime, is fraud, specifically identity theft. Mm-hmm. Identity theft right now is absolutely huge. Nobody talks about it. Nobody sees it. A lot of the units that, are the fraud units, especially in local departments, are so small, they are overrun. My personal experience with a fraud unit, there are not enough people. There's not enough resources. I mean, you couldn't have enough people. You couldn't have enough resources.
Yeah.
And it comes down to the crime. So on the law enforcement side, the identity theft crime, it really has to do with, the banking, the financial institutions. I've seen people apply for HELOC loans with physically there in the bank. And it's very easy to get a fake ID. It's very easy to go on the DMV website. There's a backdoor that, criminals use on the DMV website, specifically for New York, but other states I wouldn't be 100% sure. But in my experience, they can change somebody's entire driver's license or ID and use the backdoor on the DMV website, which I believe they fixed now, but this was huge when it was happening. And they get the ID sent directly to them. And now they
Oh,
have
wow.
just assumed this person's identity. And they'll go to a bank, and if they have a little bit of information, which, almost 2 billion social security numbers and emails and names and dates of births have been leaked in the U.S. market. So good luck now with identity theft that's going to be happening in the next, 1 to 2 to 3 years. It's going to astronomically explode.
Jeez.
But the banking, the financial industries, specifically where a lot of this fraud is happening, if you have a person physically present and they look kind of similar to the picture on the ID, and I'm telling you right now, bank tellers, they don't look.
Yeah.
And if they do look, it's a quick glance, and it's just I mean, who can blame them? They're doing, 100, 250 people a
Yeah.
day, right? You have an identification. You don't even have to have a card, especially a lot of these big banks. You just say, I'm so-and-so, it's account number this, here, my date of birth is this, my address is this. Oh, I just changed my address. I need to withdraw $2,500. Okay, $2,500. $2,500 in cash. Go to the next bank. Go to 3 more banks. Take it. Now you got, $12, $13, $14, $15,000, and this person won't even know until the next morning when they look at their bank statement. They're like, did not withdraw this cash. I did not. And then you unravel that yarn, and you find out, and this happens, a month, 90 days later with subpoenas and looking at video and things like that. You just see it happening, and it was a real person that went to the bank. But the problem is they just had all these tools to use to be able to fool the bank. And I'm using banks as an example. In the identity verification world, if there was a way to verify other than facial recognition and other than, I just know this information, like, what's your secret question? All right, let me tell you something. You look on a Facebook post or a Facebook wall for somebody and you scroll long enough, you're going to find every single answer to every single secret question that every single
That's right.
every single place asks. They call it social engineering in like the hacking world and the identity theft world. You're going to find all that out. You're going to be able to get, some type of ID or driver's license, and you're going to go to these banks who have, yes, they have all this red tape and regulation on, how and why and what you can do in order to, take out money or take out loans or, buy a car and things like that. But a lot of it is very easy to fool, especially if you look up the standard operating procedures of a lot of these companies, or, you check them out and you test them and you go and you use it. The identity verification is not working right now because there's no clear way to tell if this person is who they say they are. Now, mass market with, taking money out of a bank, are people going to be doing lie detection testing to ensure that they are the person who they say they are? No, probably not.
Although you might do it if it was, if you're like, I just don't know. Why don't you step over here and take 10 minutes and take this test to make sure, right?
Exactly. When they trip one alarm bell, there's no like second step to do. It's based on the person behind the counter or based on the system that they're using. It's just like if they trip one alarm bell, then it's like, oh, we got to send a 2-step verification code to your phone. Like that's not good enough. I've seen those, I've seen that not stop anybody, right? Mm-hmm. As opposed to take our identity verification test in order to ensure that you are who you say you are.
Right.
Done. Donezo. You can't. Well, excuse me for using the word donezo, but it's the New York. It's the New York in me. But see that solution, almost like not the front end thing that you would do, because I mean, if everybody at the bank was taking lie detection, they'd be like, "This is weird." But if they trip a wire, and now they have to do it, you're done. You're going to solve a lot of fraud right then and there. You're going to be proactive as opposed to reactive. And a lot of these insurance claims from the banks and these wire transfers that are lost to Shanghai, and I see it all the time, and they never get it back. The crypto fraud world is insane.
Yeah.
The KYC regulation that you could do, the Know Your Customer regulation with these apps, if you were to take one of these tests, it would clean up so much of that. If there's anybody listening right now who's a big company or a chief compliance officer, like this is what you need to go after. You will look like a rock star, a superstar, and bringing this technology in, because the Know Your Customer regulations falls in line a little bit with the fingerprinting world, which is I know where we started. I'll go over a brief example of this. So I had a case once. I could talk about this because the case it's done. I'll leave names and geographies out of it. But a woman who immigrated to the U.S., never had a job. She was just there to help another family member watch children. She had a friend who wanted to be a home health care, an aide or something like that for one of these like nursing home facilities.
Yeah. Yeah.
This person did not have a social security number, but they wanted to work, right? Of course, noble. It is what it is. So they lend them their identification. They say, use my ID, use my social, go for it. Go there, go get the job, get paid. I don't want any money. Just go and get a job. Go take care of yourself. Go make money. Fine. Okay. Yeah, that's illegal. But okay, it's not violent. Nobody's, getting hurt. The person just wants to work. However, to be a home health care aide, you have to get fingerprinted. The person goes and gets fingerprinted using her friend's identification. Her friend has never been fingerprinted before. So as far as the state or the feds are concerned, it does not exist. So now this person's prints are now attached to this person's ID and social. And this person worked for like 3 years. And they claimed like 7 on their taxes to get as much money as humanly possible, because New York taxes are pretty high.
Yeah.
The IRS came knocking on the door of this original person with that original social security number and said, you owe us X amount of dollars. That's when she went to the police and said, I gave her my ID, I used it. Now the IRS is knocking down my door. They're going to garnish my wages. They're going to take my assets. I'm getting calls like, this is crazy. I did not know this was going to happen. The company or the agency that hired her, now all their benefits that they were giving her for the past 3 years, health benefits, everything is null and void. So they're going to lose everything. The business is going to lose everything because now they have to pay that back. So what they were paying in employment insurance every single month on behalf of the employee was all fraud. So now they have to pay that back. So now you have two victims really in the case of this identity theft, and the fingerprinting did not solve it because as far as the feds and the state's concerned, like, that is that person. I'll even go one step further. When that person was arrested, now she got fingerprinted at the precinct and now has an arrest record with those fingerprints, but with the other person's name.
Oh, jeez.
So now she has a record. She has to go and get fingerprinted with her real prints in order to do an expungement record to show, no, this is really me. But even then, she could have got her other friend who doesn't have a record to go and do it. Because how are you going to verify the identity of that person? As long as they look somewhat similar. So a solution like this with lie detection to use identity verification, or I don't even like to use the term lie. I like to use the term like truth verification.
Truth verification, certification, right? Yep.
Correct. Yeah, absolutely. If there was just one step with that, it could have solved literally everything. Like none of that would ever happen. Like if there was an employment screening process where, okay, this person gets fingerprinted, but it's also just a truth verification to, are you so-and-so? Is the sky blue? Like, do you live right now here? Like just to check the box to say like, okay, the big things that we have to check for that are true are showing that they told the truth. Like, hey, this person is clearly this person. They do live here. They do not have bad intentions. And that's just with being a home health care aide. Imagine if you're, a big company and you're going to hire a CFO or a team or a people, and I'll tell you another thing that, ties into fingerprinting. If you're arrested in one state, but you travel to another state, the states a lot of the time don't talk to each other. But the FBI does collect the data from all the states. We all know everything about the government. It's very slow. Just go to the DMV and it's very slow. So if one person gets indicted on securities fraud securities fraud is a bad example because they get fingerprinted federally for those purposes. If one person gets arrested for fraud, identity theft, or just regular fraud, or corporate espionage, whatever it is, right, in Washington State, and they go and they start with a startup in Austin, Texas. So they may look at their resume, may look at what they've done, they can do all their checks, and they can check all their references. And I'll tell you right now, references on resumes, like, you're never going to put a bad reference on your resume.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
Good luck figuring anything out from calling them. But, they're going to, on paper, they're going to be like, oh, this person looks like a shining star. Like, we're going to make them CFO. They're going to be this A player. They're going to run this department. 3.5 years later, you're going to have a person that has stolen X amount of money or that has done this, that has done that. But even if they were fingerprinted for that, it's not set in stone and it's not locked in that they will find that Washington arrest record if it just happened. Now, if it happened a year ago, yeah, they're probably going to find it because they'll do an FBI background check. That record would have already made it to the feds, and they'll see it on the record. But if they just got indicted and they cut a plea deal, and it's only like a week or 2 weeks and it hasn't been updated in the system and the prints haven't been sent to, the state capitol haven't sent the prints to the feds and it's not in the system, if they run over to another company real quick, start with them, they're probably going to check them once and then never again. Unless it's the financial industry, then I believe it's every 1 or 2 years. But if it's just a startup company, they're going to check them once. And how are you going to know that they ever had that issue in Washington State? You're not. You could know if you did truth verification.
Right.
Or you could have an idea about it. I even take examples like Uber. Uber right now does name-based background checks. If I was the CEO, if I was the chief compliance officer or the compliance law firm working with Uber, I would be freaking out right now because yes, are you within regulation of doing the name-based background checks? Yes, but it is so easy to do. I see it all the time. I see different people drop off DoorDash. And that's, it's food. You're not, transporting a human person, but I mean, still, that's a problem. What happens if a VIP orders DoorDash and it's somebody, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm going down a little bit of a rabbit hole, but, bigger companies, they're going to be forced to use some type of truth verification solution because all of these things are good for the normal, regular, law-abiding citizens.
Yeah, you think about any business, right, where you've got customers touching a service person, then that person really should be vetted. I mean, you think about, again, I love your example of Uber about just testing their backgrounds. Like, have you ever assaulted somebody? Have you ever, just to weed out the kinds of people you don't want interfacing with your customers directly. Because if you're putting them in a home or you're putting them next to the customer, there's a threat there, right? Potentially.
And what sounds like, go ahead, Dan.
No, I was going to say, for any company that's thinking about this as a solution for like employment screening, yes, you can get them fingerprinted for sure. That would work. But there's a lot of regulation when it comes to employment screening for fingerprinting. Only certain industries, the state has to accept it. You can become an FBI authorized recipient and you can get an OCA number or a code and send your, prospective employee to go get fingerprinted. And then they'll obtain the record before the actual person obtains the record. It's a very long process, and it's expensive, and it's not available to all industries. So a solution like this is something that they can do very quickly, and that doesn't have all that red tape. Because we tried this in the industry where we're like, well, what if instead of selling fingerprinted to the market that is already there, what if we create a market? Like our total addressable market for fingerprinting is X amount, 1 million people, right? For the people who need fingerprints. What if we can do something on our end to make that 1 million, 2 million? Like we don't have a total addressable market problem then because we're presenting the solution to somebody else who could use it. But there's a lot of red tape, there's a lot of regulation, and you have to get the government's blessing to do it. With a solution like this, you do not.
Yeah.
As far as I know.
Yeah, that's right. This has been so fascinating. Mary Claire, any final questions? And we'll give Dan a chance to wrap up with any final thoughts that he has as well.
Well, it's more of a point of, Dan, you've offered a lot of great information. I'm walking away from this thinking of how do we continue to educate large and small businesses on thinking about their standard operating procedures differently? Because that's something that can often be a sit it and forget it sort of scenario, particularly as more and more risk enters the market. And the call for a desire for in the market just for truth in general. But it sounds like you've given so many different examples of the need for, and at times I will think the growing desire for truth, and whether it's, truth verification technology or facial recognition or some other form of biometric, AI is here and it's going to continue to, I think, disrupt many industries, but there's an education opportunity as well in order to, I think, both on the consumer side and on the business side.
My thought process with it is I like to tie the unknown with the known. So if you're an executive and you know that you could have a big problem if XYZ happens. So they know that exists. That's always going to, they're going to be paranoid about it. If
Yeah.
The executive team at Uber, I'm telling you right now, in boardrooms, they're 100% worried about a serial killer being an Uber driver. That is the worst headline that they could ever get in the history of ever. And as far as I know so far, it has not happened, or maybe it's been suppressed to the news, who knows? But, I have not seen that, but I know for sure that is a worry. Yeah. And they think about that, and it's really not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. So if you're looking at all those potential things that could happen, that's all reactive stuff. I would hope and I would think, and if they don't know, maybe if they're listening now, they know, that a way that you could be proactive about it is, you can do iris, or not iris, but you could do facial recognition. You could do this. You could do, the things that a lot of applications do with the know your customer regulations, especially if you sign up for trading platforms, enter your social, enter this. I'm telling you, there's 2 billion social security numbers available on the black market right now because they just had that large hack done.
That breach.
So kiss that goodbye, because anybody's going to be able to do that if they have, malicious intent. So if they know that this could be a problem, then bridging into the unknown of solutions is going to help, and it's going to help people sleep better at night. So the unknown is just know that it's not everything that's available right now on the market that's going to help you, although it may, but they're probably already doing it. Like, what's one more thing that they could add that's rock solid, that's a different technology, that's AI integrated, that has very good accuracy, and that can help without a lot of regulation, without a lot of red tape, and it's very simple to just provide it. Like, it's all done remotely. It's all done, with accuracy. It's all done without huge logistics involved. With fingerprinting, you need a person to go from one place to another place. There has to be a physical human being. You cannot chop your hand off, send it in the mail, get fingerprinted, and send it back. Until they make the iPhone application or a little dongle that can, tap into an iPhone and take the fingerprints right there. And even if they did make that, how do you know that the person on the other end is who they say they are?
Yeah.
You're going to take a selfie? Good luck. That you could beat that too. So the truth verification solution, it's just another notch in the belt, an important notch that I think about, that people just need to tie the already known issues that could arise and just bring in this one unknown solution just as soon as they find out about it and say, okay, what are the logistics of adding it? Who do we have to speak to on the compliance team to add it? And they'll be shocked to find out that when they speak to the compliance team, they're going to say, we don't see anything here that you need to do in order to be compliant with truth verification. It's something very simple to add on. It's a very easy solution. I think you should start doing it in, second quarter, third quarter, whatever it is. Just things like that. Just pair the known issues that could arise that keeps them up at night that they don't want to happen, and take this solution and just... it's going to help people sleep a little bit better at night, knowing that their business is not going to be the next big viral news story about a serial killer doing this, or about, a person who, the sex offender registry is pretty good, but, just other crimes and just in law enforcement in general, there's a lot of segregation with it, especially when it comes to different states. Everybody's traveling now. People are working remote jobs. It's very hard to find out, what happened in this state as opposed to this state. And in the fingerprinting world, we see it a lot. And, there is a mission to, kind of join all that together in an organization. But with the truth verification and the identity screening worlds, my goodness, this would be an excellent solution that is new, that's not highly regulated, that's, not on the government's radar of doing this mass market right now, that people can take as a very quick and easy solution to just make that one thing maybe, 2, 3, 4, 5% better. Making it 5% better may save you from a huge headache 2 years down the road.
Yeah.
Right. This has been fantastic, Dan. We really appreciate your time, your expertise, this unique combination of law enforcement, new technology, entrepreneurship. Love the stories and love the insights. So thank you for joining us today. And Mary Claire, thank you also for being here as well. And thank you, everyone who's listening. And if you have ideas or thoughts about what we should be talking about, we'd love to hear from you. And in your quest for truth, we hope that you find what you're looking for. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Blessed.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of TruthQuest. If you'd like to be a guest on our show or would like to customize a solution for yourself or your business, email us directly at answers@icanknow.com. TruthQuest is brought to you by the #1 truth verification technology available today. Visit us at iCanKnow.com to learn more, and stay tuned for the next TruthQuest.